Good evening. I'd like to call the September 12th, 2024 Indian Head Park Village Board meeting to order. Clerk, could we have a roll call, please, or a roll, please? Thank you.
Trustee Saldana.
Here.
Trustee Eck.
Here.
Trustee O'Laughlin.
Here.
Trustee Donnersberger. Trustee Zvetka.
Here.
Trustee Gazis.
Here.
President Wittenberg.
Here. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a very special evening tonight, and with that in mind, I would like the unanimous support of the board to change the agenda order if we can, and have our presentation of police awards and our swearing in of the police commander, Chris Gardner, to please be first and second on our agenda this evening, so all of you do not have to stay for all of the rest of the meeting. I'm hoping that that works for all of you, and then you can celebrate with your friends and family. So without further ado, if that works for everybody, a thumbs up. Can I please turn it over to the chief for the presentation of police awards?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'm going to recognize Police Officer John Kinane and Police Officer Mike Majewski. On May 17, 2024, Officers Kinane and Majewski, while working with the South Suburban Major Crimes Task Force, were asked to conduct surveillance on a potential suspect who could possibly be involved in a murder while they were investigating for the Village of Bridgeview, Illinois. Officers Kinane and Majewski noticed a black Volkswagen exit the suspect's driveway. The vehicle had 3 occupants and were suspected to be armed. Kinane and Majewski followed the vehicle and made a traffic stop. Other members of the task force showed up and helped them take the vehicle into custody without incident. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get this microphone right. Hold on. It's gonna fall. Anyway, they were able to take the suspects out of the vehicle without incident, and suspect Anthony Cantu was taken into custody. Officer Kinane recovered the suspect's cell phone from the vehicle, and a search of that cell phone led to additional charges against the victim's girlfriend. Interviews were conducted, and charges of first-degree murder were approved by the Cook County State's Attorney. Officers Kinane and Majewski are a shining example of hard work and dedication to duty. They are a credit to themselves, their families, and the Indian Head Park Police Department. I recommended, and it was approved, that they both receive the Department Award of Merit. And I want to say they really did a great job. Surveillance is not easy. They were able to stay there without being detected. They followed the subjects. They made sure they had proper backup, and they took them into custody. I got a cold, sorry. So anyway, I want to bring up first Officer Kinane.
If you could please come up here so we can get it on YouTube for all of you and your family can replay it and then get a picture of you all as well. Come on up right here if you would.
We got to stand in front of the mayor here. We got to be right here, all right? Stand a little closer. Indian Head Park Police Department proudly presents to Officer John Kinane the Department Commendation in recognition of outstanding act or achievement which brings credit to the department and which involves performance above and beyond that required by the member's assignment. Great job, John. Congratulations. Mike? I have you pin it because I'll kill you. I have arthritis.
Okay.
Anyway. The Indian Head Park Police Department proudly presents to Officer Mike Majewski, step over here, we're not in camera, The department commendation in recognition of outstanding act of or achievement which brings credit to the department and which involves performance above and beyond that required by the member's assignment. It was a great job, Mike. Congratulations. Now we're going to recognize Chris Gardner for his promotion to commander. Chris served in the Marine Corps. He was a franchisee of a successful White Hen Pantry as well as several other small businesses, and he joined the department in 2005. In his nearly 19 years, he has served in roles such as evidence technician, investigator, field training officer, armorer and range officer. He was a member of the Major Crimes Task Force as well as the South Suburban Major Crimes Task Force for over 10 years. He has fulfilled nearly every role in the agency, most recently as officer in charge of the midnight shift. I also want to say that he really, since I've been here, he's really stepped up. He helped Director Rafferty clear out the evidence room and many other tasks that were required of him. So Chris is really deserving of this award. Chris, you want to come up? This may be his last night because he actually asked me to pin him, and that might not be a good thing. I'm going to get this. Hold on. I can't even get it on my own shirt.
Okay? I'm sure it'll stay.
Anyway. Please raise your right hand. On my honor,
On my honor,
I will never betray my badge,
I will never betray my badge,
my integrity,
my integrity,
or the community I serve.
the community that I serve.
I will always hold myself and others
I will always hold myself and others
accountable for our actions.
accountable for our actions.
I will always uphold the Constitution,
I will always uphold the Constitution,
the laws of the state of Illinois,
the laws of the state of Illinois,
and the ordinances of the Village of Indian Head Park.
and the ordinances of the Village of Indian Head Park.
I will faithfully discharge my duties as a commander
I will faithfully discharge my duties as a commander
for the Village of Indian Head Park
for the Village of Indian Head Park
to the best of my ability.
to the absolute best of my ability.
Congratulations. And before I turn over to Mike, Director Rafferty, he didn't want any fanfare, but it's his last village board meeting. He's going to go be deputy chief with the Village of Orland Park. He came, he saw, and he conquered. He got all the policies that were in place. We didn't have any new policies post-Safety Act. They're all up to date and issued, so the officers are working off of proper policy. He got the evidence room cleaned up with Chris and Eve. I was wearing my uniform. I didn't want to get dirty. But then he put the flock cameras in place and many other things. So he's truly going to be missed. I just want to thank him for the months that he came here and helped us out. And then the other one is usually not at village board meetings, Eve Gambla. She put together a fine structure and sent out fines that had not been collected in years. We received over 30,000 so far. We have another 20,000 pending, and she's going through some more where we might get $10,000 to $20,000 more, which we never received. So great job on Eve too.
doing my report or should I? Whomever is going to leave for pictures and celebrations, this might be the time to do that. And thank you, everybody, for coming. And congratulations to everybody. Thank you. I don't want them to get trapped. We're doing that. I'm going to do my report, and then it's going to be comments, and then the consent agenda. My report's next. Hi, bye. Take care. Thank you. Are you guys you don't want to stay? Come on. Thank you. Bye, Rich. Take care. Thank you for your patience. I think it's important that we recognize our police department, and I appreciate everybody coming in and seeing that. Thank you. I am going to do my village president's report, and then yes, please. And then we will reorder public comments to be after my report, if that's okay with everybody. Phase 1, Wolf Road redesign update. We had the CAC meeting number 2 on July 15th. We had over 15 participants participate in the CAC meeting, and we discussed different road alternatives, reviewed alternatives for the road with Strand and Cook County, and also people expressed preferences and ideas and opinions about those road alternatives from the CAC Corridor Advisory Committee that were present. The CAC is awaiting some changes to road alternatives based on the meeting and their feedback, and those stakeholders have not seen yet the tweaks and the changes that were made to the alternatives. So we are awaiting those alternatives to be presented back to the CAC. So until that happens, the public information meeting number 2 will probably be scheduled sometime in October. I think we have a 15-day notice period that we have to uphold. So once the CAC has the alternatives that they want to bring forward approved, then we will be able to schedule the next public information meeting, and we're hoping that will be in the end of October, but we will keep you updated on that process. Also, just want to remind everybody that every third Thursday of the month, we have senior congregate meals here in this room at 1:30. We will have entertainment. This time, we alternate with an educational presentation, one luncheon, and then followed by music or some type of entertainment. And if you would like to be concluded in our free lunch and entertainment, please RSVP to Barb at Aging Care Connections, and there is her phone number and email. We are also scheduling a senior police academy in partnership with both Indian Head Park Police Department and Cook County Sheriff. You can register for the Senior Citizens Police Academy, which will be 6 different dates that I've listed up here. To learn how to protect yourself from crime, scams, and cons, understand the functions of our police operation, courts, and jails, joining us for some unique activities and refreshments, and there will be a graduation ceremony and reception. So please, if you'd like to be included in the Police Academy, it is a really neat opportunity. It has some role-playing and some activities that I think you'll really like. So please feel free to call 708-865-7341 and let them know that you would like to attend and participate in the Senior Police Academy. I'd also like to bring up that September is National Suicide Prevention Month. And I wanted everyone to understand some of the statistics regarding suicide that I had not really been aware of myself and that I thought were important to pass on to you if you don't already know some of these things. The overall suicide rate in the United States is 48,000 deaths. It's the 11th leading cause of death in the United States. The demographics are men are more likely to die by suicide, making up nearly 80% of all suicide deaths in the U.S. In contrast, women attempt suicide at higher rates. Suicide rates are highest among middle-aged white men. But significant increases are seen among youth and people of color in recent years. Youth suicide is the second leading cause of death among individuals aged 10 to 14 and 20 to 34. In 2021, nearly 20% of high school students reported serious thoughts of suicide, with about 9% attempting it. Suicide rates for adults age 65 to 74 in the U.S. have been rising, with male whites in this age group showing a significant increase. The government has established the National Suicide Prevention Hotlines. You can just dial 988. So if you know somebody that is feeling this way or having thoughts about it, or you think that somebody's in trouble, or you're just worried about somebody, or they're worried about something, please call, text, chat 988. And you can always rely on our own first responders. We are crisis intervention trained, CIT trained in our police department, and we have resources both in our police and fire department to help you. But this is also an option for you to use 988. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of that as we look at these sobering statistics. We are doing an IHP community survey. It's still open for feedback. You can use that QR code right there, or you can go to the bottom link and take the survey. Gavin is taking a class through our one of our continuing education resources on community surveys, and he is presenting this survey feedback that he's going to be showing you tonight, or going through tonight, at the City Managers Convention in 2 weeks in Pittsburgh. So he's going to be presenting these findings, how he put together the survey, and reporting on the survey, and participating in a roundtable about this. But he's going to go through the survey with you preliminarily this evening. So if you haven't taken it, we'd love to have your feedback. You can use your QR code now or go to that link, and please take it if you haven't already. I think we have, what, 200, is it?
It was 191 earlier today.
So we'd like to get a few more if that's possible. And what we're going to do with the survey results is use it to help us direct what you think is important to do with our resources in the village. So we're going to use the information to direct the money and our resources to do things that all of you think are important. So we're not guessing what you think is important. We know what you've said and what you feel is important for us to do with your tax dollars. And that's all I have. Thank you. Now we're going to move on and move public comments to be the next agenda item, if that works. So if we have any public comments from you, now would be the time. I do have a list here. Did you want to go by this list or not, Andres?
You don't necessarily have to do it. You know,
Okay.
anyone can bring comments in, but you know, you might see if someone's on the list that wants to come up and speak about it, because there are multiple topics that they want on there as well.
Okay. Mr. Mann? I don't think that is on. Can you try the switch?
Man, 6458 Black Hawk Trail. I'm here. I wanted to discuss briefly the Heritage Center, since that's been looked at with some considerations recently. There were several things. I started looking at it with the board that I was on the 2014 for one period. The purpose of it was never really, and why we purchased that property was never really clearly explained to me. I've never seen anything in writing that's really explained to us why it was ever even purchased. But the building condition, if you've been there, you know that it's in seriously bad condition. It does not begin to meet ADA standards. We've determined that by engineering reviews. And it also has structural problems. We know that as well. Bare minimum cost would be over $300,000 to repair. And that just brings it up to the bare minimum. Doesn't begin to address other things. I don't think that includes, does it? Mold replacement or removal. You know, because we don't even know how bad it is, because it's not an extensive survey yet. The use of it is 6 hours a week, as I understand. And very truthfully, I've passed there many times, and there's one car in the parking lot, which is the docent, apparently. And so it has very minimal use. There were statistics provided by the board, or excuse me, by the docent group, and it indicates that they have a very small number of people utilizing the facility. Something like 10%, or less than that actually, of our population. Plus, there are a lot of liability issues. I have a neighbor who fell because the steps were not at all properly, they're too steep, too small, and she's an elderly lady, and was hurt, but she, as far as I know, there was no lawsuit, but that's just one of the issues that is out there for anyone coming into the building. Plus, I don't believe you can even go to the second floor. Structural issues. The other thing is that to look at the demolition of this vehicle, or this building, would be fairly minimal compared to what the cost would be to try and rebuild it, modernize it, whatever. Those costs, I understand, are between $1 and $2 million. While we can't sell the property probably because of the property will not meet our minimum standards for private property, the village could use it for other things like a new police department, building a real community center, things like this. But what's there now is not at all suitable for that usage. It's a 40,000 square foot lot, and we talked about selling it for homes, single-family homes. That's probably not a viable option currently, because as I understand it, that the Wolf Road renovation is going to pick up some additional property off that frontage, and so it will no longer be viable for a private, home. My comment is, I hope that this board will look at it carefully and make the decision to remove the building, demolish it, get rid of it so that we don't have what is both a health safety hazard as well as a standard physical safety hazard, both the people using it as well as individuals that may not even be using it but are around the building. I don't even know if they've done an asbestos survey or not. No, okay, so that's yet another item. All this will be additional costs that aren't even begin to fit in that $300,000, I would think. But I ask that the board seriously consider removing and getting rid of the building and giving us an opportunity to come up with other options of what we can do with the property for the village. I don't see it being sold. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Kalinowski. I've been a volunteer at the Heritage Center Library for the last 10 years. Now, because most of you were not here when the village purchased the property 23 years ago, I wanted to fill you in on some of the details. The purchase price of the property was $350,000, of which $250,000 came from a grant from the State of Illinois Department of Commerce and Community Affairs. And the grant was specifically to establish the Heritage Center and Library in town. And the house was built in 1870. In January of 2002, the board passed an ordinance designating the property as a historical landmark. And the ordinance requires preservation of the assets and making it available for residents. In November of 2002, the library opened with all donated books and volunteer staff, and it's been operating smoothly for almost 22 years. Now, since I've been a volunteer over the last 10 years, the village spent very little money on maintaining that building. But I do know that a lot of money was spent on landscaping the adjacent lot around 2 or 3 years ago, and I heard anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000. I don't know how much it was, but it was somewhere in that range from what I heard. And I do know that the village administration knew about a roof leak at the Heritage Center about 1.5 years ago, but did not have it repaired for whatever reason. So I want to remind you that the 2002 ordinance requires maintaining the building, and I think we just need basic repairs, not $1 million worth of improvements. And regarding the 2002 grant from Illinois, I read the terms and conditions very carefully, and I think that you need to know 4 things before you move forward and make a decision. Number 1, the purpose of the grant was to utilize a historic structure for a community center for use as a volunteer library. 2, the failure to comply with the terms of the grant shall terminate the agreement and seek recovery of the funds. That was $250,000. And you must get written approval from the DCCA before changing the activities using the grant. And also said a revision is inconsistent with the original purpose and it's not allowed. Number 4, the grantee must not spend the money that results in destruction or sale of a historic property to change the use. So I would ask that you please consider all the legal requirements of the grant before any demolition or sale of the property. It seems to me that the state would require payback of the $250,000 grant if the property is sold or demolished. Now, the good news is grant money should be available from the State of Illinois Library Fund for repairs. I know that LaGrange Park recently got almost $5 million for their second remodeling of their library that was built in the 1980s. And I'd like to also say that personally, I don't have any attachment to the old building. But for me, a library here is an absolute necessity. I don't want to go to McCook over by First Avenue. I want to have a local library right here in town. So I ask you to please keep our book collection intact and accessible for our residents. We need our library to reopen as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Hi, I am Ann Vermeer, and I want to thank you for letting me speak about the Heritage Center. And again, Sharon did talk to you about the history of the Heritage Center. It goes way back to 1870. And the Lionsville Church used it as their parsonage. Then it was then purchased by a family, and then eventually when they moved out, that's when the village acquired the Heritage Center through the grant. And when the Heritage Center was created for a free lending library and a community center, then it set up a Heritage Center committee. And then their job was to meet every month, and they were to oversee the docents, they were to plan activities, and they were to pursue funding for the Heritage Center. And over the years and before COVID, there were many events at the community center. one popular one was Coffee with the Mayor. There were craft shows. The Scouts met once a month. There was a piano lessons. The students at LaGrange Highlands were invited to come to the Heritage Center, and they would learn about the history of this area, because many of the students did not know that Indians were here. I know that there was an inspection back in 2017, 2018 by the TPI, and at that time, because I have the report here, the building was found to be safe. There was no mold, and the foundation was sound. And in the reports that I have, that the cost to the residents was less than $250 a month. So my big question is, why destroy this historical site? I mean, we are removing our history. And in fact, I have an article, this was from Suburban Life back in 2001, which said the village is working to honor its heritage. Now, at that time, a resident of the village contacted Native Americans. And I was on the board at that time. And this room was crowded with Indians, Native Americans. And they were demanding that we change the name, Indian Head Park. They wanted every street that was named after an Indian to be changed, because they said this town was not respecting Native Americans. And they also were upset about the land, which is adjacent to the Heritage Center, because their belief there could be Indians buried there. So they were very, very upset of what the village was doing. And fortunately, and I want to thank the two residents of Indian Head Park who stepped up and they volunteered to create a Native American foundation. And from that day on, they sought donations to Native Americans. So I'm just, maybe it's because I've always been a history teacher, that I would hate to see the Heritage Center be destroyed. So I thank you again for giving me this opportunity to speak to you tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
I am John Corcoran, 6417 Apache Drive. I know a lot of people have put in a lot of time and effort to the Heritage Center, and it's not that I wish the Heritage Center goes away, but we just can't afford it. And I don't mean to be flippant, but as I was listening to some of the earlier comments, it reminded me of the timeshare exit commercials that you hear. You know, it seems like we're roped into something that's just going to cost us money, cost us money, cost us money. And we don't have that level of financial flexibility to have a nice to have that's going to continue to demand resources. Again, it's a nice thing. It would be great if it were free. It's not. I just don't believe we have the resources that can sustain that over the long term. Thank you.
There's more on this list, so if there are more people, please come to the podium and feel free to come up front and make your comments, please. Thank you.
I'm Sue Dodge. It's a little tall. 6370 Pontiac. My comments tonight are, there's three things I want to say really quickly. Where we live, Keokuk Road and Pontiac sort of merge at a triangle. At that point, cars can be, it's almost like a head-on situation where it's a blind turn. So next week, a new family is going to be moving into the house directly across the street. And the children are from 9 years old, 9, 6, and 3 or something. And I'm really concerned that, you know, they're not going to expect that the traffic is the way it is. So my husband and I talked about maybe perhaps suggesting speed bumps, which everybody hates, or maybe perhaps a stop sign. And I don't know what is required to do that, you know, how you requisition it or what the game plan is, but it might save a life. And so we have watched head-ons, or near head-ons, since we lived there over 20 years. And people seem to be driving too fast. Okay, that's the end of that speech. Okay. The second thing I want to know is if there's any opportunity for a dog park, because so many of us have dogs. And if we wanted to go to a dog park, the closest one I think is 31st and Route 83, which is DuPage. And we would really, I think it would be a big asset for our community. There's so many dogs. And from where our house is and from our windows, we see new dogs all the time and new people all the time. So we maybe thought that would be a good suggestion if there's an opportunity, maybe in Blackhawk Park or someplace that isn't being utilized. And number 3, how do I find out what the project is going to be where they're marking our roads? I don't know what's taking place. I haven't been here and I haven't seen any of the meetings, so I'm under the impression that there is something starting. They're surveying.
We'll be able to give you that report tonight if you wait
Okay,
till the
sure.
Public Works, Joe Coons, our Director of Public,
Okay,
so
okay.
we can talk about the
Yeah.
road
All right, well,
projects.
thank you for listening.
Can I add something to her comment before we go to the next person?
Yes.
The area where that triangle is not only blind to people coming in on Keokuk onto Pontiac, but there is a diagonal street and there's so much vegetation. Kids that are coming from the diagonal onto the park, they're actually running ahead of their parents, and even at just 20 miles per hour, you have no time to stop. And so there needs to be some signage there, at least to slow people down and look for the kids, because they're most likely with the fall and the winter that might be easier, less leaves, but it is an absolute blind spot for the diagonal there. And there's new families there. There's a family with
We have
little
new
kids.
young people
and they're
all the
on their
time.
bicycle and they
Yeah.
are just crossing over to the park.
Also, the person that lives in that house now, Don Hoke, was mowing his lawn on his tractor. And I don't know the age of the boy, but I think he was like a teenage driver. Came flying around the corner and hit him at his tractor. And luckily, it wasn't a big deal. He didn't hurt Don, and Don said, I'm going to give you a pass because I know you're, a nice young man, but I really think you better watch it. So that was just one situation. But, I mean, Dave and I sit there on our chairs and we see the traffic all the time. And what was the other thing you said? Oh, okay. Well, and there's also a school bus that stops right there at the same location. And I believe it's the high school children, I'm not sure. But so it's really, it's really something that should be looked at.
Well, the chief and Joe Coons are right here, so if you could both talk a little bit about that when you get a chance.
So that property you're talking about, is that house that's for sale?
It has sold.
It has sold, okay.
Yes, and
We're aware of that. I'm actually in the process of getting a letter together with Andreas here because it encroaches in, and we're trying to find out who's responsible for maintaining that, because it encroaches into our area. So we're developing a letter to give to the homeowners, to give them an opportunity to landscape it to the way they'd like to have it, or else if it's on village easement, we're going to go in there and trim it back. But we're going to give them an opportunity to clean it up the way they'd like to have it.
Yeah.
You know, we'll work with them, but I just don't want to go in there and just hack it all down.
Right.
But, you know, we're in the process of doing it. It's something we've been actually talking about in the last
My
week.
suggestion would be, I believe the new owners are coming in on the 16th, so it may be an opportunity
Right,
there as
yeah.
long as they're new people, and you might want to.
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, it looks like it needs some
Well, the-
TLC, and that's what we're going to try and work with.
The owner now has moved, out of state, so that's why it's not being maintained. like
Right,
it
right,
used to.
yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's on our radar. It's something we've gotten actually a couple of complaints about, and we're trying to remedy that.
I just don't want any loss of life.
I understand. We don't either.
As far as stop signs, there is a national standard that has to be met, because if we were to put in a stop sign, there's an expectation that the vehicle's going to stop, and if the kid is walking and the car is not used to the stop sign, or it doesn't have a lot of traffic, and the kid gets hit, the village is on the hook for everything. So that's why I've been through this with my former position in the south suburbs, and people want a lot of stop signs. It has to meet a standard before we can put them in. However, as far as speed bumps, they don't really bother the police cars, but Public Works and fire response will be delayed. The ambulances and fire trucks cannot respond as quickly because they have to get over those bumps. I will set up a traffic detail over there, and I'll talk to Public Works about maybe there's a sign that says blind curve ahead or something like that, but there's something that can maybe indicate it. But we'd have to have an engineering company come out and take a look and make sure that it meets the standard for a stop sign. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Feel free to step up.
Yeah, hi, Alex Murphy. I'm at 11211 Tecumseh. And we recently had some landscaping done down at the corner of, I guess, Cochise and Tecumseh, where they put in boulders where the turn goes down the hill to Wolf Road. And I think on a few occasions, some trucks or cars have hit those boulders and knocked them from the place where they've hit, and they've rolled into the street. And they're currently already been knocked off of wherever they're supposed to be. So it seems like that's just waiting for another incident where they're going to be pushed out into the street, and they're already kind of moved from their original spot. So is there going to be any plans to keep that area maintained, or where it's going to be pushed back into the original setting, or made them more secure so they don't get knocked off of their...
The homeowner worked with the village to come up with what we thought was going to be an appropriate opportunity to dissuade trucks from doing what they were doing over there. Obviously, it didn't work as well as we had anticipated. So I think Joe is trying to evaluate what the best next steps are without having big boulders in the roadway. That's certainly not an appropriate solution at this point. So I don't think we have an exact answer right now, but we certainly have seen the boulders in the roadway.
Okay.
And we're going to have to do something else.
Yeah. Okay.
We wanted it to look natural. The homeowner did not want a guardrail there. And it wouldn't be in keeping with the area that, a guardrail, so.
Actually, she did want a guardrail.
She wanted a
Yeah,
guardrail?
so we were trying to keep it more
Yeah,
of
more
a
natural.
natural. Yeah,
So, I mean, maybe we go back to that, I don't know. But
Yeah.
if you'd give us the ability to, get back to you, or maybe we'll make the next month, we'll figure out what the opportunity to do to solve that problem and talk to her about that and
Okay.
make a decision.
Sounds good.
Lori Davis, 6482 Apache. I agree with Glenn and John that I think renovating the Heritage House is unaffordable. But over the years, have there been applications for grants to renovate?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I don't know if, not that I'm aware of. Besides the original grant, I'm not aware of anything.
I was going to ask that question since you brought it up. There was a comment that the Heritage Center Committee was supposed to pursue grants. Is there any record that the Heritage Center Committee ever brought in any funding to maintain the building? Because if there's no grants from the city, no grants from a private group, no grants ever pursued, that's been 24 years? 24 years of no money coming into that center. Just wanted to make that comment.
Any other comments from the public? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I think there were other people that wanted to speak tonight. We're going to give you, Tom, if guys come right up.
I was at the meeting when you closed the Heritage Center, whatever date that was.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember? Tom Rice.
Yes, I do remember, Tom.
Okay.
There are other people here tonight that were there too.
Okay.
Yes.
So my understanding was that you were going to do a.
Sorry, could you please speak into the microphone? I'm having a difficult.
sorry.
Thank you.
So I thought that the village was going to do a health assessment of the building. Was that done?
Yes, it was, and I've got some preliminary results from that to report tonight.
Oh, okay. That's all I want. Thank
Okay, is that it? Any other comments before we? Seeing none, I would like to move on to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda,
I'll
please?
make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
A comment on that is one of the items on there, which is 4C, approval of the preliminary financial report. I just want to note that staff is aware that the budget comparison analysis doesn't include substantial revenue that's been collected, and they're working on that. And we'll have more conversation in regards to processing system down the road here a little bit. Thank you.
Any comments, any more comments on the consent agenda? Can we have a financial report, please?
Yes. Pertaining to Trustee Eck's comment, I'm happy to report that this report does account for those revenues as well as all of our expenditures. So this is a financial summary for the month ending August 2024. Our cash on hand at the end of July 2024 was $4,027,662.14. Our payments for August of 2024 were $370,507.23. Our total revenues for August 2024 were $782,702.84, making our ending bank balance $4,439,857.75. And that's the financial report.
Well, in regards to that, that does account for all the revenue, but it still was not reflected on the budget comparison, which we talked about, right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, do we have any more comments about the consent agenda or questions? Hearing none, can we please have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Saldana,
Aye.
Trustee Eck,
Aye.
Trustee O'Laughlin,
Aye.
Trustee Zvetka,
Aye.
Trustee Gazis.
Aye.
It's 5-0, the motion carries.
All right, we're moving on to new business. We've already completed Item A, presentation of police awards, and item B, swearing in of Police Commander Chris Gardner. We'll now move on to item C. Can I have a motion, please, for item C?
I make a motion to approve consideration and approval of ordinance 2024-15, which is declaring surplus property.
I'll second it.
So this property is all Public Works property that we no longer need. Some of it is equipment from the pump house that has been, and you'll get a full report on that. I don't want to steal Joe's thunder on the pump house. But this is equipment that we will sell at auction once it's declared surplus. And the proceeds will go towards purchasing a new Public Works truck, partially. We'll have to,
Can we have an estimate of the possible minimum and maximum on the,
we're still assessing that.
you're still assessing?
But it's not going to be enough to pay for the truck by itself.
Yeah, I thought so.
Quite honestly, the only two items we talked to our engineering firm that are probably worth a purchase are the gas-powered engine, the Waukesha, the generator, and yeah, the motors, you might, but it's a specialty piece. It's something somebody's got to really be looking for it. But we'll put it out there. We'll try and get the best we can for it.
If we're unsuccessful in the auction, we'll contact a salvage company.
Any other questions on item C? Can we please have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Saldana?
Aye.
Trustee Yak?
Aye.
Trustee O'Laughlin?
Aye.
Trustee Svetka?
Aye.
Trustee Gazus?
Aye.
5-0, the motion carries.
Moving on to item D, can we please have a motion?
I make a motion to approve consideration and approval of ordinance 2024-16, creating the position of police corporal.
I'll second that.
This item is, there have been staffing changes in the police department, and some of those were addressed earlier today. And I'll let the chief get into the details, but we're going to be having 2 corporals added to our command structure to cover shifts, to be in charge of shifts.
Currently, there's no rank structure other than the commander and I. There's no ownership of the shift. There's no direct supervision. You could be the officer in charge one day, somebody else could be the next. There's no fluidity to the shift. There's no direction to the shift. I equate it to having a substitute teacher every day. So I need somebody that's going to be in charge of the shift, command the shift, and direct the shift how it should be run. And that's why I was asking for a police corporal. I do understand that there were sergeants years ago, but that's a promoted position. These will be appointed. From what I understand, and I don't want to get into the weeds, but I understand there were some problems with the promoted position, so I would like to appoint it. But we need leadership here. We need some direction.
Any questions on the corporal rank? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Aye.
Trustee Yak?
Aye.
Trustee O'Laughlin?
Aye.
Trustee Svetka?
Aye.
Trustee Gazus?
Aye.
5-0, the motion carries.
Item E, can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion for the consideration of ordinance 2024-16. I'm sorry.
You just did that.
I know. I make a motion for the consideration and approval of Resolution 2024-07, authorizing the execution of task order number 24-036 for the professional engineering services related to the 2024 roadwork.
Second.
repair.
This was presented to the Public Works Committee and moved on to the board. Excuse me, and this is for our regular road program for 2024. It's going to cover two streets, Thunderbird and Cherokee, and the connecting street there. And if there are questions or if you want to hear more details, Joe Coons is here for that.
Does this include the rejuvenation?
I was just going to say it includes the reclamite as well. So
And
far-
what
so-
streets will be reclamated?
I have a map, I can share that with the board. But so far, that is the only thing that's definite, where they're still, I actually met with Thomas Engineering today for a different item that we'll discuss, but they assured me that they're working to get this road program in this year still.
So the Dodges asked what was going on near their area. So is that a reclamite street? Is Pontiac or Blackhawk?
No, that's another item we're going to discuss here in a minute.
okay.
I'll comment on that.
Okay.
You can go ahead and.
Oh, okay. We're also getting ready for next year's water main and road program for Pontiac. And Strand Engineering is doing their survey down there. So they want us to mark up our water main so they know where our stuff is so that they can plan accordingly for the new water main that hopefully we will be putting in next year.
And when will that construction likely begin?
We hope to have it out for bid early spring next year so we can start construction early on. So we're way ahead of the game this time.
So one of the objectives in Public Works that Mr. Coons is working on is that we do our water mains first before we do any road repairs. So we have had a challenge doing that in the past, so we are trying our best to do things in a better order of operation, if that makes sense. So does that answer your question regarding? Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Saldana?
Aye.
Trustee Eck?
Aye.
Trustee O'Laughlin?
Aye.
Trustee Svetka?
Aye.
And Trustee Gazis?
Aye.
5-0, the motion carries.
Can we please have a motion for item F, please?
I move for the approval of Resolution 2408, authorizing the village administrator to solicit bids for demonstration of the Heritage Center.
Demolition. Second.
I think you meant demolition, correct? You said
Demolition.
Yeah,
Demolition,
Okay.
yes.
I second that.
Gavin?
I wanted to, excuse me, just go through the executive summary on the item for those who didn't have the packet. Some of the key findings in our research, Andres and I did some research on the Heritage Center. Some of this has already been spoken to, but as far as building condition, a 2022 inspection by Don Morris Architects identified numerous building code violations, including mold risks. A 2023 fall hazard assessment highlighted significant safety hazards such as non-compliant handrails, unsafe stairs, and persistent water damage in the basement. Further evaluations revealed that the building requires extensive repairs with minimum costs estimated at $306,000. However, to fully modernize the building and meet public facility standards, the cost would increase to $1 to $2 million, and that was based on observations from the firm Performance Services Incorporated. The TPI report that was mentioned earlier tonight was also a visual inspection. They didn't pull up boards or anything like that, but the reference to no mold wasn't within the scope of that inspection. They did make recommendations that included repairing or adding an ADA compliant wood ramp to the front entry, a crawl space vapor barrier, the purpose of which would be to mitigate mold, furnace vent repair, floor joist repair, provide accessible toilet room, electrical repairs, and the most upsetting thing in this list, from my perspective as a building owner, is asbestos removal. So I don't know, there was nothing in the report that indicated they found asbestos or that there was, they didn't say asbestos is located in this area, but they did include that as a recommendation. So, but other things.
Is that the TPC?
The TPI.
TPI.
So I just wanted to address that also. So back to the summary, the usage, as was mentioned, it's open 6 hours a week. There's a limited number of users. The building is under legal and liability risks. The building does not meet ADA standards, which poses accessibility and liability risks for the village. Keeping the property in its current condition exposes the building to increasing liability, potential lawsuits, and higher insurance premiums. Cost considerations: repairing the building to meet modern standards would cost between $1 million and $2 million, while demolition would only cost $30,000, and that's based on the Strand report, the $30,000. Demolition represents a more financially responsible option given the limited use and higher repair costs. A 2014 referendum showed over 60% of voters favored selling the site. Current community feedback indicates mixed opinions, with some supporting the revitalization, while others suggest selling or repurposing the land. And the community survey that I'll talk about a little later had kind of, there were not a huge number of comments about the Heritage Center, but among those comments, about 15 to 20, about 75% of those comments were replace the Heritage Center, tear down the Heritage Center. Concerns, mainly negative about the Heritage Center. About 25% of those comments were positive. Future land use: the 40,000 square foot lot represents opportunities for future development that could better serve the community. Potential uses include a passive park, a dog park, new library, or community center, all of which align with the village's long-term goals of ensuring public safety, financial responsibility, and effective land use. And those ideas, that's just a quick list of things that I've heard talked about and mentioned: community center, dog park. But my recommendation to the board as far as what to do with that property as a future use would be to have a community engagement process, much like we've done with Wolf Road, getting as much feedback and input as we can from the public, discussing it among the whole board, among all of the committees of the village, and doing the point of the whole process being to have an open and transparent decision-making process, and to satisfy the needs of the community and what the community is looking for from that development opportunity. So that's my summary. I had provided a full report, and if there are any questions that we can answer.
Gavin, voting for this does not take us directly to demolition of the Heritage Center. This is just to get a bid. Is that correct?
Correct. So
we have not talked about whether or not we have to replace or return the $250,000 grant that was pointed out earlier.
Right.
Has that been reviewed by our attorney, to your mind?
So there was research done by the previous administration on that question, and their finding was that it did not have to be paid back.
What about the surveys you just had done on the building?
Oh, I'm sorry. That was a question. So the health and safety surveys. So one thing we did, we put a radon detector in there. We also took some samples. We did find that the radon levels are elevated. In the sample was from the basement, but we also have a detector on the first floor. We also did some air samples, found that there was mold. But I have more results from RHP risk management. These are preliminary results that I received today. And it says, you will note that the total mold spore counts inside the building were lower than those outside. This is generally a good finding. However, in this case, all indoor locations had significant levels of Aspergillus penicillium concentrations, and this type of mold was not seen outside. This indicates that there is significant mold growth of these species in the building. This is consistent with the moldy odor in the space. Since there was no obvious visual indications of mold growth, there would need to be an extensive investigation to determine the amount of mold remediation that is required. While it is unlikely, but not impossible, that the remediation would affect the structural components of the building, it is possible that significant amounts of wall and flooring material may need to come out. Other preliminary findings from a safety point of view include the basement stairs. These should be rebuilt and the opening for the stairway enlarged. The electrical system seemed to be relatively new and in good condition. The furnace appears to be at the end of its useful life. And that was just a quick summary. So I'm expecting a more detailed report to come in.
What have we done in terms of finding an alternative place for the books and the operation of a library?
So I have reached out to Lionsville Church to see if they have any space. We're looking for other retail space options. We're trying to find a place to put them. If we can't find something by the time we need to remove things, in the event that you approve me going out to get bids for demolition, and then a month or two from now I come back with a preferred bidder, then we could find storage at Public Works for the books. I don't know if it would be practical to operate the library from the Public Works building, but we would do everything we could to disperse the books. I think one email we got from Ms. Kalinowski talked about some of the books that could be donated to schools, and we could coordinate with some of the HOAs that have libraries may be able to take in some of the books, but I think actually this resolution before you has a section directing me to collaborate with the docents to take care of the books.
So if I may, one comment, I guess, when we talk about bacterial and mold strains like Aspergillus, that's permeating the surfaces already. Thank you. That's permeating the surfaces, permeable surfaces, potentially walls, flooring, things like that. The likelihood of that already permeating a lot of those paper materials that are in that establishment is also excessively high. Aspergillus is a very potent allergen, especially to the young and the old. It affects a lot of people in different ways. I think we should consider our responsibility if we talk about donating these books or moving them to another location, because I think intentionally introducing something that may have a contagion into a school, into a church, into an open public facility would not necessarily always be in our best interest, ethically speaking.
Other comments?
You want
Go ahead.
I just want to comment based on the reports, both reports, and based on the history of the building, that looking into what our obligation is. This is a house that was converted without the proper conversion. It was converted by use to a library, but not by physically converting the building to take the books. And as a public building now, by ownership, not by reality, as a public building by ownership, we are obligated to give the public the best possible space for the use that is supposed to have. And right now, not only are we not giving them the best possible place for that use, we're not even at the minimum standards. Minimum standards will require $300,000, and that's not even fixing all of the modernization. So minimum standards will bring the building to the minimum standards of that space, and it's not the best possible library that we can have. So we will be spending a lot of money to convert a home into a library, but keeping it as a home in the space confine of what a home is. It is not appropriate, and considering the health hazards is not healthy, and it is a waste of money, because now it's not just the $300,000, it's whatever we're gonna spend on a building that has not been updated in 25 years, and since 1870. What we're gonna spend in the next 10 years or 20 years. So $300,000 is gonna buy us another headache in 5 years, and then another headache in another 5, and we're still not gonna be giving the public the best possible space for the use, which is a library. I think that we need to be able to move forward with what we're gonna be doing with the site, but we cannot be discussing what we're gonna be doing with the site when the building is in the way. The building is gonna come back time and time again as not being appropriate. I think it's the time to do it before we spend any more money, and especially because now the building is a health hazard. So I would encourage the board to consider making this one step, taking this one step, so we can then consider what to do with the site for the best possible offering to our town, to our residents, to all the residents. I see the number here that someone cared to analyze. 4,000 residents, 30 residents per month see use of the building. That's 0.7%, not even 1%. But I'm gonna pose to you that if one person, only one per month, was using the building, we're still obligated to give that one person the best possible use and the best possible building, because it's a public building. And it has to be healthy, and it has to be appropriate, even if it was just one person. So let's set aside that it's only 30 people. The fact is, it's not appropriate use, and it is not healthy, and it is time to make a decision. That's it.
Well, we're not in complete agreement on everything. My sense is that before we demolish the building, that we have an alternative use of the site in place, which is somewhat contrary to what you just suggested. And I think that we need to go forward and find out what else we can use the site for. Maybe it might be building a community center, it might be a dog park, it might be a library, but I believe those are steps that we need to take as part of the entire process. And what are we going to do with the books in the library now? We don't have something specifically identified, and I think that needs to be part of that as well. Whereas moving forward with the bid, I'm in favor of, but in taking the next step, which is to exercise the bid, I think those two steps need to take place, which are to determine what we're going to do for a library and what our alternative use of the site will be.
I myself think that if we move forward with removing of the property, that we should form a committee, and we could vote on forming a committee, so that way we can get the views of the village, of the people, on what they would like to do. And I think we should do that right away if this does pass.
I don't think anybody's opposed to getting a bid on the demolition, are we? I mean, and I know this is beyond the scope, it seems like it's beyond the scope of the resolution, but since we're having the conversation, Eileen Donnersberger said it well in her memo. I think we've heard enough from all the sides. I do believe we are kicking the can down the road. It's not necessarily something we've created, but this is where we are today. We're just voting on a resolution to get a bid for demolition, so would this be a proper conversation to have once we get those bids, or we're going to kind of roll this into one? Are we having the conversation to get to solicit the bid, or are we having the conversation to do the demolition?
Solicit the bid is the nature of the
resolution
motion.
is.
Yes.
Unless I misread it, that is what we're voting on, right?
So does that, council, do you want to entertain, we get a bid and we put a timeline together, or can we?
What is the timeline for a bid to go out?
Well, it could be a month or two before we bring a bid back.
Okay, so we have 2 months for more discussion on what to do with the site, and when the bid comes back, and we have now an actual timeline, because the bids also have restrictions. They will tell you this bid is only valid for, so we will then have to vote on who won the bid and let the contract out. And then we have a contract process. How long does it take to write a contract and sign it and then, make it valid? So we do have time to be putting out a committee to discuss what to do with the now possibly soon to become available site. But in the meantime, can we start the process?
And I will say, I will work my best to move quickly on getting a bid back for you all,
Yeah.
a preferred bid, because demolition in the winter could become an issue as we get later in the season. So, and leaving an unused vacant building, whether it has books in it or not, it could become a liability. The longer it's up and the longer it sits as what we call in the business an attractive nuisance, it worries me. So.
Yeah. So basically, to answer your question, we are voting to allow him to set the bids out, but that starts a timeline. Because companies that are construction companies, demolition companies, have also their timeline. They're going to come back and say, if you want this done, it's either done from here to here or later in the year. So we will know the timeline once the bids come back.
Well, I mean, just to throw the bee right in the hornet's nest, or the hornet in the bee's nest, do we want to amend the resolution to include that, since we're having this conversation?
The resolution talks about demolishing it, and therefore, that's why we need a bid.
Okay. So are we talking about getting a bid to demolish, or are we talking about getting a bid to demolish?
A bid to demolish. That's what the resolution is talking about.
So if we get a bid to demolish, we're demolishing.
That's the vote today.
No, you've got to vote. That's going to be a separate vote, I believe.
You'll have
isn't
to
it?
approve the bid
You still have to
before
approve
we
the
can
contract.
start.
Council, can you clarify that, please?
Absolutely. The resolution before you is a resolution authorizing the administrator to go out to bid, to basically start the bidding process, to prepare the invitation to bid, to put the bid out, to use the colloquial, to put the bid out on the street, to get the responses, and then to go through and make an evaluation as to which is the lowest responsible bid, and then bring that item back to you at a subsequent time for your approval or disapproval.
Did you have a question, Mr. Gazis?
I guess my question is to the board and to the council, and I apologize, maybe it's my legal hat that needs to be cleaned off a little bit. We're approving Gavin to go out for bid for demolition. We're not approving the demolition.
No, not until the bid
Obviously,
comes back.
So that's the next conversation.
Exactly.
And
I guess that's the other question. Do we want to amend it, since we're on a timeline?
The difficulty with amending this, while you could give the administrator the authority to award the bid without knowing how much the bid is going to come back or what the bids are going to come back, you may not want to do that. You know, the board and the administrator always have the opportunity to reject all the bids for any reason, but if you're going to affirmatively direct them to award it, it may be too open-ended at this point.
What is our threshold for allowing the administrator to make decisions? What's the amount?
$10,000.
Oh, then you have to come back to the board anyway.
Exactly.
And is there some action that has to be done with the trustee Sveska brought up that there could be bacteria or contamination in the books. So how do we determine that? What is the best way to do that?
Well, I mean, you could certainly.
And can they be cleaned?
Okay, two different answers. So yes, absolutely. You could certainly either have testing done on site or send them to a laboratory sample set of books and have them do testing. That's I don't know how much that costs, but it is something that can be done. Cleaning is a little bit more difficult, right? Because when you're talking about books with very thin paper permeable pages, the only way to really fully eradicate mold is an extensive chemical treatment, which is going to be very costly. And I don't know what type of residues those things leave behind. So we could also be talking about mitigating one potential health issue for another potential health issue. So I just think we need to think about all those things before we decide to gift these books to another establishment, be it a public facility, a school, anything like that, because...
Okay, well, we'll think about that in the interim here and talk about that when we come back to the board with the bids and the understanding of that. Are there any more discussions that we need to have regarding this?
I had promised Trustee Donnersberger that I would read her statement into the record.
And just one more thing. We have other emails that I think, too, Andres needed to also just state. So do we want to do that one first, and then you do those?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have Gavin read trustees Donnersberger's first, and then I'll read the summaries of the comments, and then, of course, the full comments will be then added into the record.
Statement from Eileen Donnersberger, September 12th, 2024. I'm sorry I cannot be at this month's board meeting. However, I would like to share a few thoughts on the Heritage Center. Background, the Heritage Center was purchased in 2001 with the intention of using it as a library for the community. Books were donated and categorized by volunteer docents. In 2001, it was designated a historical landmark, and that was by the village. The village passed an ordinance. Which was mentioned earlier. This is an aside. The only requirement in that ordinance was that the village board approve any changes to the Heritage Center. It wasn't, although it stated one of the reasons for the ordinance was to encourage preservation, the only thing that said any change, the only requirement that was mentioned was that any changes to the Heritage Center need to be approved by the board. Back to the statement, sorry. Former trustee Ann Bermier shared with us that before the pandemic, the Library Heritage Center was used for multiple purposes, including scout meetings, parties, piano lessons, and of course, a lending library. With the onset of the pandemic, the Heritage Center could not be used as a community gathering place. Where we are now, according to the numbers recently submitted to us by the docents of the Heritage Center, one book club meets once a month at the Heritage Center. We have 15 volunteer docents, 12 substitute volunteer docents. Our book collection estimates to be about 6,419, including 1,500 paperbacks, about 3,500 hardcovers, and 1,300 children's books. Moreover, according to the 2020 census, IHP has 4,065 residents. The approximate usage per month is 30 residents, and a usage rate of 30 residents a month equals just 0.00738% of our village population. As reported by Ms. Kalinowski, the Heritage Center was built in 1870. According to experts, the board hired from Don Morris, Strand, and our liability insurance company, the 154-year-old Heritage Center requires a significant amount of work just to make it safe. Here are the numbers. Based on the report from Strand, just to bring the Heritage Center minimally up to code and therefore safe would require between $300,000 to $500,000 taxpayer dollars. To bring it to the standard we should expect in a public building would be more like $1 million to $2 million. The firm Performance Services shared the range $1.5 million to $2 million just based on a visual inspection. Once they get in there behind the walls, et cetera, the cost will only go up. Regardless of how we got here, the question before the board becomes, can we justify the significant amount of taxpayer dollars for a small percentage of our residents, or is there a better use for that property that would benefit more of our taxpayers? At this point in time, it would be difficult for me to vote to approve allocating the significant amount of taxpayer dollars it would take to make the Heritage Center into something that is safe and that the village can be proud of. However, having said that, I would like to hear more from our residents and my fellow board members before making final decisions on the Heritage Center. The possibilities include, but are not limited to, fully renovate the current building, demolish the building and rebuild a new state-of-the-art community center, demolish the building and create a new outdoor space to be enjoyed by families. I'm sure there are many other potential uses for that property, but we need to take time to explore the possibilities. I'd like to see a committee formed that will look into various possibilities and costs for each. I would like to see this new committee work quickly. In fact, I'd like to have a preliminary report from them by the October board meeting. I would be happy to serve in that committee. And that's the end of the statement.
And then Andres did get various emails into him regarding this topic. Do you want to just paraphrase those, please, or summarize those?
I'll summarize them. I'll basically hit the major points, but like I
Yes.
said, I will be including them in the minutes, and I'll send them out to the board so that you can see, you'll be able to see what they say in their own words. The first one is from Amy Eckert, and I also apologize ahead of time if I mess anybody's names up. In paraphrasing it and summarizing it, she liked the idea of the library, but that with the book, how the site was in the condition, that we should look at other options. She did like the agreement with the village has with the McCook Library, as it allows access to the suburban library network. She wondered if perhaps village could fund part of the costs for those for that membership. She hopes that the books and other items in there that have been donated can possibly be donated out, and hopes the site is used for other purposes. She mentions possibly a park. And then her final thought was that for the demolition, that if we are going to demolish the property, that perhaps we partner with the fire district to see if they could use training in there for the building. The next comment was from Diane Voiles. She actually expressed 3 concerns. Only one of them was related to the Heritage Center. She said if the Heritage Center was closed, that she wanted to know if we could partner with a closer library because McCook's farther away. And just for completeness, the other 2 comments were she was asking for more speed enforcement or speed bumps on Acacia because people speed there. And then the other one was a question about whether kids can use motorized vehicles in Black Hawk Park. The next comment was from Ed and Karen Auer, A-U-E-R. Noted that they were surprised and disappointed with the Heritage Center being closed because they had enjoyed its use. They enjoyed its use. They had hoped it should be maintained, that because it's an asset to the village, and if closed, they were hoping for alternative locations for a library to possibly be. After that, it was Linda McMillan was just asking if the Heritage Center gets torn down, if there would be a new building, because it was nice to have a library. And then the next one was from Mary Ann Redner. To summarize it, that they were disappointed in demolishing it. It noted that it was a designated historic landmark and it was used for the library. Stated that we should be looking at perhaps getting grant money to restore the site, and then hopes that the village will choose to keep it around. The final public comment was from Sandy Saporito. She making comment on it that she was thankful that we have the McCook Library option intergovernmental agreement, and that the $100 is worth it for the suburban library network. So I said all those will be in the minutes going forward as well.
Thank you. Any other comments before we take a roll call vote, please? Hearing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Trustee Saldana?
Aye.
Trustee Eck?
Aye.
Trustee O'Laughlin?
Aye.
Trustee Svetka?
Aye.
Trustee Gaddis.
Aye.
5-0, the motion carries.
All righty, moving right along, can we please have a motion for item G, please?
Make a motion to consider and approve the resolution 2024-09 authorizing the village administrator to execute an agreement with BS&A Software for financial and community development software.
Second.
This item is, so BS&A software, we're looking at to replace our current system, which is Locus 7, LOCIS, and it is used right now, Locus is used for our financial software, mostly for general ledger and accounts payable, and it is also used for our water billing. The system we currently have is error-prone, and it requires a lot of manual processes. For example, when we go through our budget every year, we use a system I call Excel spreadsheets to create our budget, and then once it is approved by the board, we have to manually enter it into Locus. BS&A would make that, we would do it in BS&A from the start. Water billing, we also do that manually, where we download from one system and then upload it into Locus. That would be more streamlined with BS&A. We would also be able to use BS&A for other functions like our building permits and our business licenses, things that right now are more complicated than they would be if we were to use BS&A. It also has a robust online payment system. I know not everybody does pay their bills online, but we would encourage more of that, and it would be more reliable with BS&A. As I mentioned in my cover memo, the initial cost is $80,910. We would be able to cover that with our insurance, which is called IRMA, the Illinois Risk Management Agency. And we have in IRMA a reserve fund. We're required by IRMA to have reserves in the event that we need extra money to pay any kind of claims. And we have excess in that account right now, and we would be able to access that excess to pay for this first year, and we have more than enough in that account. And then the ongoing cost is $18,900, which is more than we're paying for Locus right now. However, Locus is moving towards a new system that will be an upgrade, Locus 8, and that is a cloud-based versus a server-based, but there have been many issues with Locus 8, and we don't yet know what it would cost us, but we do know it would be more than we're paying currently for Locus 7. So part of the urgency for moving to BS&A quickly is that transition from Locus 7 to Locus 8. First off, there will be costs associated with that transition. Secondly, if we go through the transition, it would be much harder to download our data and enter it into a new, better system. So there is a bit of urgency with this because we are starting to get the calls of you need to transition to Locus 8. I'd be happy to answer any questions about this proposal.
We have some people that are familiar with the new system.
Absolutely. We have Andres, who used it in Burr Ridge. Our finance director and our team from Lauterbach and Amen have all used it for, at different places. They have actually been involved in a transition, or they're currently involved in a transition at Schiller Park from Locust to BS&A, so they have experience with the issues that come up with that. They've all used it for budgeting, for general ledger, accounts payable, and bill pay. utility billing and other billing. So yes, there's a lot of familiarity here with it.
On your sheet, we also added their current client list by Cook County and DuPage County. Any other questions before we move for a roll call vote? Any other questions? Hearing none, can we please have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Saldana?
Aye.
Trustee Eck?
Yes.
Trustee O'Laughlin?
Aye.
Trustee Zvetka?
Aye.
And Trustee Gazis?
Aye.
5-0, the motion carries.
Moving along to item H, discussion of library alternatives.
This does not require a motion to approve, just to put it on the table to discuss, right? So one of the things that we need to consider is a library alternative in the possibilities of how to offer a library to our residents. Currently, residents can go to McCook and for $100 get a library card that then opens them up to use any library in the area. We need to know what kind of numbers we have, how many people are actually doing that, and what usage we would then see if we were to offer subsidizing that to allow more people that might not see $100 as a good investment, but might, with some help, get a library card either from McCook, or at that point, if the city is the village is subsidizing, might open up to many more users, and we might want to shop around for other alternatives. We have a library closer by. Hodgkins has a library, etc. So we would need to start the process of finding out how people, or what kind of interest people would have, so we can then calculate the financial impact of subsidizing this program. I would like to pose that kids all have access to their libraries, so it is very possible that the number of people that would use it would be more for, because the facilities have an entertainment appeal when they bring their kids, that they don't have access during off hours in schools, and there's adults that cannot use the school's libraries. So we need to know what kind of numbers we're looking at, if we could open up for a kind of survey, open question, how many people would be interested, so we could see the financial impact. We have talked about, what to do with the books. Well, we need to find out that they're safe. We need to find out how long does it take to, if we were to move them to one place or another, how long can we go out for a contract? That's a financial impact too, if we end up having to rent a place. We need to analyze that financial impact. There's many other alternatives, not considering that we're gonna put together a committee for the possible use of the land. There's ways to ask residents to get involved in, with ideas, what to do with the idea of a library, from having the possibility of a different library card that opens up for any other library to, do we actually end up hosting books, the same books, if they're safe? How do we do that, because it's a financial impact? And all the way to building mini libraries all over the town if we were to have a plan like that. So I would like to consider opening up a question to the residents. How would you like to have your library needs helped, subsidized by the town, or what can we offer that is financially possible to help out?
I'd like to comment on a couple. I think the village of Countryside pays half of the $100 for the library card for Hodgkins. I believe they do. That can be double checked. The other that you mentioned.
Well, it's any library. I don't think it's just Hodgkins. I think they pay for any library.
Well, I think,
Half of it, or
I think
$50.
LaGrange has a different program that's based on property value, so that may not be the case. That card may not work for LaGrange, it may for LaGrange Park, but that's part of the investigation that you were talking
Exactly.
about. The other thing that you mentioned, which was the existing books, and I think it would be worthwhile to follow up on what Danielle was bringing up, is are those books healthy? And if they're not healthy, then that really changes what we may want to do with them, using them, putting them in a different location, donating them. If they're not healthy, that's critical. So if there's a way we can quickly check a couple of those books to make sure that they are or are not, I think that would be worthwhile in our decision-making process.
Any other comments about library alternatives? I know we're going to have another session, I'm sure, many sessions, so Danielle or Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% am behind supporting and providing access for everyone in the community to have library access if they wish. I think my only concern with, surveying the community or trying to get input from the community is that, historically we've had very low results when we've asked for surveys. So I'm just afraid that, we'll get 150 people that might respond, but that might not accurately reflect the needs of the community. So I would like to maybe figure out a way, if we could come up with one, that would encourage greater engagement in that type of discussion, because I think it's important, especially for our kids. I mean, without saying, so.
You good, Jim? All right. Do we have any more comments? If we don't, then we need to probably move on to the community survey interim results, if that's appropriate.
Yep.
All righty, let's move on to item I, presentation of community survey interim results. Gavin's just going to do a quick run-through of his slides.
It'll be quick. Just what I'm going to do is give you a description of the survey, some of the overall results, then I will dig in deeper into some of the results and look at our strengths and our opportunities and some of the priorities that came out of the survey. So we all know where the village of Indian Head Park is. Keep in mind the audience I originally created this for is going to be in Pittsburgh, so they may not have heard of Indian Head Park. But I do want to highlight the mission statement. It's sort of a mission statement, not officially adopted by the board, but what I feel like we're here trying to do, and that's provide responsible stewardship of public resources in order to maintain a prosperous, resilient, and livable community for the residents and businesses that call Indian Head Park home. So, and that's part of what this whole survey is about, is trying to accomplish that mission. So the project description, there were two overarching goals for this project, but a lot of it was driven by the fact that there has been so much turnover here in the last year that a lot of the priorities and prior decision making were lost in the shuffle, and so a lot of the knowledge of those things is very limited. It went out the door with a lot of staff and some elected officials. So the short-term goal was to gather data to determine priorities for the 2025-26 budget year that we're just now ramping up to discuss. And the long-term goal for me was to develop a decision-making process that's consistent. We go through the same process every year with changes as needed, but it's also, more importantly, based on data, and it incorporates performance management so that we can circle back around at the end and say, we did these things this year. How did that impact the residents? Did residents feel more safe? Did residents benefit from all of these activities that we did? And this process is going to be aligned with our values that we've talked about since I got here. I've presented to you the values of transparency, efficiency, and accountability. So again, the alignment with those values is a priority of this project. The project's purpose includes understanding community needs, promoting community engagement, assessing satisfaction, and identifying demographic trends and how those demographic trends impact perceptions of the community, informing decision-making, building trust and transparency, and then, as I mentioned, circling back around and evaluating those efforts. Our methods, I worked with Polco, a company that does surveys, and they specialize in public services surveys. And we developed a community survey using some of the items that are similar to the national community survey that they do throughout the country and used to set benchmarks. And we added some questions about the image of the village and some for budget prioritization, and I'll get into those details. We posted the survey on the Polco Engage platform starting July 26th. We did outreach through the village website and our Facebook page. We announced it at board meetings. We took our QR code to National Night Out and other events. We've got it posted at our front counter. And we also sent the link to HOA presidents and had them distribute it to their homeowners. And we did get, as of this morning, as I said earlier, we had 191 responses, which is good for a survey of this type. The results, when I published the final results, this survey is open for about another week. But when I go through all of the results, they'll be weighted so that we're taking into account the demographics of Indian Head Park and balancing the survey results with that so that we can understand the demographic impact. But once the results are finalized, we'll publish that summary report with all of the data to share. We'll make that public, and then staff and board will review and incorporate those results into our budget discussions going forward. Now getting into the results, just first a neat little word cloud here. This was responses to the question of one word to describe Indian Head Park, and you might be surprised to find out that some people think one word means 10 or 15 words, but we got a lot of words in response to the one word question. But the larger the word, the more people said that word, and quiet really stands out. Community, peaceful, friendly. But overall, I will say all the words were very positive in that part of the survey. There were actually a number of questions, and thank you. I want to say thank you to anybody who filled out the survey. So I appreciate that. Hopefully everybody up here on the dais did. But that just kind of gives you a image of what comes to mind when people think of Indian Head Park who live here. These are some of the overall results. Some of the big questions were kind of grid questions where you were saying with the quality questions, you were saying the quality is excellent, it's good, fair, poor. And the methodology that Polco uses and promotes is to kind of lump the positives together, so the excellent and good combined, and that's what these numbers are on this table. It shows, I just wanted to point out the top three. Your neighborhood as a place to live, 93% of folks said either excellent or good. Indian Head Park as a place to raise children. Again, 93% said excellent or good, and the overall quality of life in Indian Head Park, and was 92% who said excellent or good. And this is where we can compare to the national benchmarks that they get from the National Communities Survey, and they do this in thousands of communities all across the country. So compared to the national benchmark, all of those are higher than you see in other communities. So it's good news for the village. And you see that column goes on goes on down, but I'm going to be quick. It's getting late. The next question was, please rate each of the following characteristics as they relate to Indian Head Park as a whole. And again, these are, the percent positive is combined excellent and good. The big ones there were the natural environment, received 92% positive. The feeling of safety, the good news for the police department, is 89%. And both those are much higher, or I'm sorry, not much higher, but higher than the national benchmark. And then the third is the overall economic health of Indian Head Park, which is 86% and much higher than the national benchmark. Please rate, the next question, oh, I'm not keeping my slides going, sorry, was please rate how important, if at all, you think it is for the village of Indian Head Park to focus on the following areas in the next 2 years. And overall feeling of safety in Indian Head Park, in this category, 88% of people said it was either essential or very important that we focus on public safety. And I'll get into a little more of how that compares to how well we're doing in a second, but that is similar to the national benchmark. The overall quality of the utility infrastructure, including water, sewer, stormwater, et cetera, was 86% essential or very important, and the overall economic health, again, was 82% essential or very important. And then the last big question of this type was on priorities. Please rate how important, if at all, you think it is for the village of Indian Head Park to focus on the following areas in the next, oops.
2 years.
Yes, but that's the same question as the previous one. The slide's in there twice.
It's different, though.
Is it?
It's police. Yeah, you're...
My apologies. So public safety is, again, 91% said essential or very important. The public infrastructure, 82%, and street repair and maintenance is 81%. The final question of this type is, please rate how important, if at all, you think it is for the village of Indian Head Park to focus on the following areas in the next 2 years. And that's, the question really was about using resources in these areas.
I was just talking to Danielle.
And
environmental sustainability.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a continuation of the previous list.
Oh, okay.
So the top was public safety.
Okay.
I should, thank you for your input. I'll add continued on
Yeah,
that slide.
'cause I thought it was a new one.
No, it's not.
Okay.
So we've talked about a dog park, and 19% of people thought that was essential or very important. So maybe some survey bias, I don't know. So I wanted to drill down one step further into, so what are some of our strengths? When you look at what is important to the village, to our residents, and what we're doing well. So not asking not only the question, what are we doing well, but also, are we doing the right things well? Are we focusing on the right things in what we are doing on a daily basis? And thank you, Charlie. So back to the feeling of safety. Folks are saying that 92% of folks are saying that it's very important to them that we, or essential, that we focus on public safety. And we are doing well in that area, where we have 89% of people saying, yes, it is excellent and good. So I have categorized that as one of our strengths. Another strength is the natural environment, where our rating is of excellent and good is 92%. And this, there was an error in the coding on the online survey. The paper survey includes natural environment in the importance question. It does not include it in the online version, and that was a coding issue that's going to be fixed when we do another survey. But there were many comments in the open-ended questions about the natural environment in Indian Head Park, including people mentioned green spaces and trees and the secluded wooded atmosphere. The Tree City designation came up as a source of pride. There's a lot of value in the natural landscapes and the feeling of living in nature. The wildlife and rural feel of the area got a lot of attention despite its proximity to major highways and Chicago. There's a lot of concern in the community about the removal of mature trees, and residents would like to see the village maintain its natural aesthetics while balancing necessary developments like sidewalks and safety measures. So I think the importance is supported by the comments section, and also by the priority ranking. You saw that that was high on the list of priorities. Then there are some areas where I thought it was more helpful to break out the excellent and the good, because when you look at the good with the excellent, we seem to be doing it very well. But when you break it down, you see we have some room to move from a lot of good to more of an excellent perception. And some of those areas would be in infrastructure, where folks said it was essential or very important at a rate of 82% to focus on infrastructure. And when you drill down and look at the excellent and good, only 12% thought we were doing excellent there, but 51% thought we were doing good. So that comes up to 63%, which is pretty good. But it could be, we could shift more of those to excellent. And I have kind of categorized these areas, infrastructure and then also parks and recreation, as areas where maybe we can do a little bit to move that ball more towards the excellent area. I call it low effort, high reward wins. These are some things that where we just make a few small adjustments and we move the ball on that. And I think that it's important for us in the short term to focus on those. One, to show that we're listening to the residents who gave us feedback, and another to just keep the momentum going as we tackle bigger issues, which I'll talk about on the next slide. Well, my screen died. There it is. So these are areas that I've defined as opportunities where we can and need to be doing better. Ratings on importance were very high in these areas, but our quality ratings are a little out of sync with that. The percentage of good ratings in these areas was still pretty high, but the excellent was low in all of these. And like I said, there's more room for improvement there, but they're going to be a little heavier lift. So these areas were economic, health, even though folks said it was very essential, and some folks said it was excellent, and more said it was good, there's a lot of work to be done on that area. Then the quality of transportation system, and that included foot and bicycle transportation as well as others. You know, there's not a lot of opportunities for increasing public transportation, although we could always approach PACE and see what other options there are. There are the Lyons Township senior and transportation for seniors and people with disabilities, but those opportunities are there. But I think more of the attention in the survey was on walking, pedestrian access, and bicycles. This is, though, an example where there's been a lot of discussion for years about sidewalks and whether people are in favor of them or against them, but there hasn't been a lot of movement on doing anything in that regard. And I think this is an example where we can take the data from the survey and we can now make decisions about sidewalks, about pedestrian access and connectivity, all words that came up in the open-ended sections, and we can do something about those. So I see that as a big opportunity for us in Indian Head Park. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about the priorities that came out. Again, the top 5 were public safety, public infrastructure, street repair and maintenance, enhancing stormwater management, and green space and environment. And these are pretty consistent with what you saw in the other results. But I think it's important to recognize that we're not going to be able to fix everything at once, so it's good to say these are the top priorities, the ones we need to tackle first. There is a lot of overlap, like I said, between these and the previous slides. And once the board has refined this list in the budget discussions, I think it would be helpful. There is another option available through POLCO called Balancing Act, where it's an opportunity for residents to do an exercise where you have $1 million and you need to make some budget decisions, and that's a way to see where people, it's an opportunity for people to put their money where their mouth is and tell you what their priorities are through their spending. So that's something that can also be done online. And so now we get to the conclusions and recommendations. What I've found is that the response to asking questions, I've gotten a lot of feedback on that, and that people understand that the village is interested in understanding their point of view. And I think that has been helpful. And another finding is that issues that the board has been discussing for years, like sidewalks, like fences, without data to back up a decision, now have some data to support board action. Those areas in the middle ground of strength and opportunity, as I said, could be an early focus, so we get some of that momentum going and then we get some early wins. And I look forward to talking through this more with the board and the committees as we go forward. And just wanted to hit on some next steps. What we'll do after we publish the results and had a chance to go through those with the board, we'll do some community engagement. We'll prioritize key issues, develop actionable goals, and then allocate those resources through the budget. And some of them will be long-term plans. They'll be under our capital improvement plan in some cases, but we'll allocate those resources, create budgets, and then it's very important to note that we'll monitor progress. We'll come through, we'll regularly review our progress. We'll do more surveys in the future to see if we have moved that ball. So that's the quick version of
Thank
the
you.
presentation.
All righty, moving on to reports. Is that appropriate at this point? Can we have trustee reports? Trustee Gazis?
Trustee Gazis, yes. Planning and zoning did meet last week. Andres and I are going to meet with Chairman Skovich over the next couple of weeks, and Danielle, to try to get the commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, more focused. And again, kind of to Gavin's point, get some early victories, kind of, get some victories and progress under our belt and build some momentum there. We have a really good commission. I think we just need to give them a little bit more direction.
Danielle? Thank you.
Thank you. The next landscape meeting is going to be October 16th at 6:30 p.m. here in the Village Hall. We encourage everyone to come out. There is going to be a lot of discussion about the upcoming tollway plantings, potentially some additional options, and maybe the inclusion of some additional trees that may be allowable in that plan. So please come out and join us. We'd love to hear community feedback. Thanks.
Brenda?
So what I'm looking for this evening is the approval of the board to draft a letter from our attorney. So let me just go over a little bit of information. As a trustee, I continue to receive numerous complaints about the increased noise along the tollway since the construction of the new walls and the expansion closer to Keokuk, Pontiac, and Flat Creek homes. Even residents that live outside of that particular area throughout the community are concerned about the noise level, the apparent thinness of the walls, and the increased engine braking despite the assurance to the contrary. Furthermore, the promised landscaping has not materialized and the current aesthetic is unsatisfactory. I request that the village attorney draft a formal letter to the tollway authority addressing these issues. The letter should demand a detailed update on noise mitigation efforts, landscaping plans, and enforcement of engine braking restrictions, or remove the sign. I also recommend scheduling a follow-up meeting with the representatives to ensure our concerns are addressed properly and comprehensively. The village must take a proactive stance to ensure the tollway authority fulfills its obligation to our residents. I'd like this letter signed by our village president, our village administrator, and the village attorney to show enforcement. Landscaping is supposed to take place in the fall along the frontage road, and meeting take place on October 16th to talk about Flat Creek landscaping. After how many years with assurance to the contrary, with what has materialized of today, the noise issue within the village, and I'm not feeling very confident regarding the landscaping either. So what I'm looking for is just your support as far as having the village attorney draft a letter and send it out.
I just want to add that I fully lend my support to your request.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Absolutely.
Madam President, if you just wanted to entertain a motion to direct the attorney to draft that letter as directed.
I make a motion to direct the attorney to use the language in the letter to then draft the letter to IDOT.
Second.
You do the back voice vote if you like.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That motion has passed. Thank you. And it's to the Illinois Tollway Authority. All righty. Can we also have a village clerk report this
Okay.
evening? Oh, I'm sorry. Charlie. I'm sorry, Charlie.
Usually a lot to say, but we've discussed an awful lot in both finance and activities going on here, so I'll pass.
Christina?
I have no report, just you already reminded people that we have a luncheon next Thursday. And to mark your calendars, the Ghouls and Goblins is coming up in October. Is it Sunday? I can't remember.
We'll give you the date. I have the date, but I can't.
Yeah, the date was marked in the Village Voice. If you got your Village Voice, please mark your calendars.
Going over to Andres for the clerk. Do you have a report this evening?
I don't have a report this evening because kind of on the topic of locusts, I had a lot of struggles with it this month, so I wasn't able to get numbers for a building report, and there were no FOIA, so.
Thank you. Joe, Public Works?
I'll be brief. Just a couple of updates. The pump house, it's in full auto now. It's running as designed. We're still working on tweaking settings and so forth. Met with Strand Engineering this week to go over a punch list of some of the items that need to be done, landscaping and some internal work that still needs to be taken care of. Also met with Metropolitan, which is our SCADA provider, and we worked on a few things on that as well. Again, all of it's kind of fluid. We're getting it down as we keep moving forward. One thing I did talk to the engineers about was I guess we took the heaters out of the original plan to have them replaced. So they didn't hook the electrical ones back up because they're outdated. There's a couple of gas unit ones in there that I think might need some attention. So I think we're going to have to have our contractor come out and look at those. We got to have heat, obviously. So I'm going to look into that because that was kind of thrown at me this week, but there may be some costs involved. From what I understand, the cost was substantial to have them done in this contract, so I guess it's going to be cheaper to do it this way, but either way, we need to do something to get the heaters working in there.
Yeah, maybe they switched out the heaters for the generator or something.
Yeah. You mean our Rolls Royce?
Yeah.
All right.
Just a thought, just a thought.
Yeah. And just kind of goes along with the pump house. We had our annual hydrant flushing done this week. They finished up today, which really gave a nice test to the pump house to see if it would work correctly with the demand of water when they flush those hydrants. And a couple times I was over there, all 3 pumps kicked on at the same time and did exactly what it was supposed to do. We just had to adjust a little bit of lag time when the next pump would kick on because it's kind of a one-off when you're doing hydrant flushing because you don't usually pull that kind of water all at once. But when you're doing it that way, you want that pump to kick on because the other one is struggling to keep up. So it doesn't matter much. We did a 15-second lag on it, so we're going to leave it that way because, God forbid, something happens and we have a break that's extensive. The pump should work accordingly. So, but like I said, it's kind of a fluid thing. We're working on that. But the hydrant flushing, it was a 3-year program. This was the last year of it, so we'll probably be going. We need to keep going because now we're 2 years behind on the first set that we did. So this year's budget coming up, we'll have to put that in there again for our annual hydrant flushing. This Monday, Mayor and the Public Works Department met with the Cook County Highway Department, and that really went well because it was a good opportunity to do a meet and greet, get some contact information, phone numbers, and get a feel for what they're responsible for on Plainfield and Wolf Road. And it's already kind of paying off. I've been in contact with them pretty much all week, trying to get their schedule down as what they're doing to maintain the overgrowth and a couple of other issues that we have on Plainfield Road. But it was definitely a beneficial meeting. Thomas Engineering, I met with them today. We had a pre-construction meeting for our sanitary rehab program. We are looking to start that at the end of October, which would be like the preliminary staging of the work and so forth, and then the lining of the specific areas that need to be lined would start around November 1st. We'll get all this out for social media. I'll get maps, I'll get everything, and we'll post all that. They also presented a door hanger that they're going to provide and put out for when they're working in certain areas. What else? We talked about it already. Strand starting the survey on Monday for Pontiac for our upcoming water main project for next year and road program and some ditching work down there. And then we also spoke of the road program already with the Reclamite, and I'll keep everybody posted as we find out more information going forward. Our new hire, we are in the background. Screening and fingerprints have been done for the new hire. Once we get the information back on that, I'm hoping to send the new person for a physical and alcohol and drug screen. Hopefully we'll get this new person in here pretty soon. And then also our HVAC over at the Public Works Building is complete. And also the annual leaf pickup by SBC is posted online and social media. The dates for that will be the week of November 11th, the week of November 18th, and the week of November 25th. If there's weather, we'll change that as we go, and they'll let us know. That's my report.
And on the road program, both the reclamite and the reconstruction or the repavement, we will post information about the timeline and which specific roads online too.
Chief?
First, I want to thank the board for the continued support that you've given to me. It's been phenomenal, allowing me to get people in place when needed. Unfortunately, Director Rafferty did accept a different position and move along, but he sat and trained the commander to get him where we need to be. The ability to have 2 corporals is really going to help us with our supervision and our leadership. So there's a lot of positive changes, so thank you for your support. I do want to talk about, we had an incident on August 23rd around 10 p.m. at Joliet and Wolf. An individual, the victim, 21-year-old male, was attempting to sell items on Facebook Marketplace. The offender reached out and said that he would meet the victim. The victim chose the location because it worked nearby. When the offenders showed up, they brandished a gun. They shot the victim in the upper leg. He suffered a shattered femur, and the bullet exited out his kneecap. He's in rehab right now. It's going to be a long recovery. However, the offender was caught 3.5 hours later by LaGrange Park. He's currently in Cook County Jail, wanted on under a murder investigation by ISP. I just want everybody to know it has no nexus to Indian Head Park. The only reason that this transaction took place in our town is because the victim worked there and was familiar with the area. So I just want everyone to know, we have a current investigation. The state's attorney has put many requirements that we have to fulfill. We're currently working on getting everything done so we can present our charges, but the offender's not going anywhere anytime soon, being held in Cook County Jail because ISP has charges. With the flock cameras, I'll just be brief that there's, other than the ones that are installed, we're waiting for a site evaluation at Wolf and Ashbrook and at Plainfield and Keokuk. We're waiting for permitting at Joliet and I-55 and Joliet and 294. So I'll give you an update next meeting about that. Personnel, P.O. Canches resigned. He took a job closer to his house. He was driving about an hour every day to get here, so he accepted a position with Lakemore PD. Really good officer, hated to see him leave. Told him if things don't work out that I would actually take him back. A great officer. But however, we have one in the academy, one in a background phase who's came in and got fingerprinted, and we are contacting additional candidates so we can get people into Cook County's academy in January. They already gave us 2 spots. Mark 43, I'm going to meet with them tomorrow, and I'll just give an update at the next village board meeting. But again, what the mayor's talked about with the senior academy, I highly recommend people to sign up for it and go to it. Cook County's going to put it on for us. They're going to provide all the instructors and all the necessary materials, and it's going to be a great learning experience for everybody. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Village Attorney, do you have anything to add?
No report.
Village Administrator?
I've talked enough.
All righty. And I do not believe we have a need for a closed session this evening. Is that correct? Right? All righty. Seeing that I think we've just about exhausted ourselves this evening, can I have a motion for
Motion
adjournment?
to adjourn.
Second.
The meeting is adjourned.